So people come usually for help with issues around mental health, and they tend to cluster around particular issues. We have depression, very, very common, anxiety, addiction, dissociation, and anger management. Now, we tend to think of all these issues as being discrete, as being separate from each other, but they are not. They all form part of the same response. Actually, all of these are a description of a cluster of symptoms that sort of vaguely overlap. You know, you take something like depression, for example. There are at least 3 different types of depression with 3 different types of causes that would have 3 different types of treatment. So we need to think about this in a different way. These are all words that are used to describe how people feel and how they're interacting with reality. To me, it's all down to self-protection. These are responses. These are responses to pain. All of this is an effort via the unconscious, those elements of the body, the brain, and the hormonal system that are non-conscious to protect you. They're all efforts at self-protection. You might be thinking, how is anxiety and depression protecting me? That's weird. It sucks. It actually doesn't protect me. It's actually harmful for me. I agree with you. These are unconscious, so you didn't consciously choose them, and they are primal. In an evolutionary sense, we still have parts of us that are animalistic, that are evolved to respond to very, very harsh and violent environments. And those responses that have been developed over millennia, which are now hardwired into us at the genetic level, are not appropriate. They were appropriate, but they are now not appropriate to the threats that we face as the modern human being. So our responses to stress, this is self-protection, it's an unconscious and primal response to pain or stress. That's what these responses are. All of this is a response to pain and to stress. Everything that we see in the mental health field, I think, pretty much everything, most of the things are malformed or maladapted. It's called in the scientific literature a maladaptive response. So mal means bad, as in the root of the word malignant or malign. And then adaptive, how well is it evolving? How well is it adapting to the threat? Well, here's the threat. This isn't a saber-toothed tiger. This isn't an opposing tribe that's attacking us. This is just generic pain, generic stress. I don't feel good. I don't like it. The limbic system kicks in and goes, okay, pain, bad, pleasure, good. Pain, away. How do I get that away? How do I move towards pleasure? So in another sense, we could say that all of the major mental health issues that we can describe, addiction, anxiety, so on, we talk about them like they're separate. They're actually all part of the same thing, as I'll demonstrate, is not just a move towards protecting the self, and you need to understand this in order to resolve them, but it's to move away from pain. All of these are about moving away from pain, including anger management. It's a move away from pain. Depression can be a response to pain where pain is overwhelming. So some people become depressed simply because they're traumatized by something that's happened to them recently and they don't know how to process it. Or they've diminutized, they've made their trauma smaller and they're not accessing it and they're suppressing their feelings. Anxiety, typically, I'm going to give it to you in simplistic terms right now. Anxiety typically is the desire to flee or to take an action. So feelings of anxiety, how does it feel when we're anxious? You feel fearful and you want to do something. You're like, no, it's like, I can't sleep, I can't relax, I'm anxious. The system is giving you a message. If we assume that this message is maladaptive, it's not a clever adaptation, it's a weak or malformed adaptation, that's fine. That's one assumption we can make. But let's assume positive intent. This is a major shift when we're looking at mental health issues. Let's assume that whatever is going on for us internally, however, anger management issues, that could destroy a relationship. Dissociating all the time, which is like daydreaming. Some people now call that maladaptive, some clinicians now call that maladaptive daydreaming. Dissociating, daydreaming, you just want to be away from reality. You want to sink into your smartphone, you want to play a video game, you want to do online gambling. Sometimes it's porn, sometimes it's just literally just sitting there with your eyes glazed over, unresponsive. You're coming away from reality to escape it. Anxiety is saying there's a threat, do something about it. Depression is kind of saying this is too much, let's give up or suppress how we feel. The addictive cycle is an effort to deal, I think, with anxiety and isolation, strong feelings of loneliness and loss. So again, it's an inability to deal with pain and stress, and it's a way of dissociating from anxiety. So straight off the bat here, we have addiction actually is dissociation from anxiety. So these are not distinct and discrete issues. They're all interlocking and interrelated. Anger management is an inability to process sadness and grief and feelings of vulnerability and isolation, which comes up as emotional dysregulation, which then fires off a primal, unconscious response. But all of these have a positive intent, even when they ruin lives. Even when if it's ruining your life, if it's ruining your friend's life, if it's ruining a client's life, the positive intent from the unconscious and primal, it's stupid but strong. This is the way to regard the unconscious primal parts of ourselves that are firing all this. Strong, but really stupid. Perhaps like an animal would be. Super loyal, but your dog is loyal, your dog loves you, but it's not got a PhD. It can't do critical thinking. It can't be like, well, Mary, we should weigh up the options here. It just knows what it knows and nothing else. The positive intent is always the move towards safety. When you are feeling safe again, or you've at least convinced the unconscious and primal part of yourself that you are safe, these will switch off. So to me, these aren't diseases of the mind. They're not viruses, there's no bacteria, there's no neurotransmitters or hormones that go with, there's no chemical, to me. These aren't caused by a chemical imbalance. They create chemical imbalances, but they're not caused by chemical imbalances. They're caused by a maladaptive response to pain and to stress. So from this we need another concept. So this is our cluster of, perhaps I've missed some out, the mainstream things that people go to counsellors and psychotherapists for. Depression, anxiety, social anxiety, which is still anxiety, addiction and anger management, and then everything else is kind of a correlate for all of these. These things, the major mental health issues that we need to be protecting ourselves against, are all around the issue of self-protection. They're all there to protect you. When you feel safe, those programs, they're not viruses, it's a program, it's a learned response. They switch off because they're not needed anymore. The way the body and the mind works is if you can demonstrate that you have a more effective method of getting something done, by the laws of efficiency, the brain will give up the older, less effective way of getting it done automatically, without second thought. Why? Because it's unconscious and primal. You may have responded with rage up until now, but if we can demonstrate to the unconscious a better way, you'll stop instantly because you're an efficient being, and those neural pathways of rage, they will die. They'll simply atrophy and die without a second thought. That's how it will work.